Hello everyone, and welcome to Biopedia. On the show today, we're talking about twins, a phenomenon which, depending on the type of twin you've come across, can perhaps leave you thinking you're seeing double. But the phenomenon of twins is, in fact, more complicated than it would first appear. So today, I'm going to give a quick overview of identical and non-identical twins generally, before exploring the specific complications in more detail. So, a quick overview then. Twins are often split into identical and non-identical twins, or monozygotic and dizygotic to use the technical term. If you are an identical twin, the fertilized egg which would originally have become one person split into two before the cells of the embryo became differentiated, meaning that two zygotes were created and could survive and develop properly. This leaves two embryos which are genetically identical and originally came from one egg, hence monozygotic twins. By contrast, dizygotic twins are formed when a woman goes through what is known as hyperovulation, meaning that more than one egg is released at once. When this happens, sperm duly fertilize both eggs and they develop into dizygotic twins. These twins are not genetically identical. One way to think of it would be that they share the same level of genetic similarity as normal siblings, with the only difference being that they were born at the same time rather than with the usual gap in between. Now, you might think that this is the end of the story, but not quite. There is in fact a third type of twin, in between identical and non-identical. To understand how this can be the case, consider how many gametes we've used for each of the twin scenarios we've discussed so far. Identical twins arise from one egg and one sperm, as the original zygote divides later on in the process. This is also why monozygotic. Non-identical twins come from two eggs and two sperm, as fertilization happens independently for both eggs, hence dizygotic or two zygotes in contrast to monozygotic or one zygote. So now let's consider the in-between point, with one egg and two sperm being used. This scenario produces what are known as sesquizygotic twins. They are semi-identical. Such a scenario is highly unlikely. In fact, it was only recorded in humans for the second time ever in Brisbane, Australia in 2014, and was reported on in multiple articles in 2019. In case you're wondering, the first case was in the USA in 2007. The discovery of these twins came about because the two babies in question shared a placenta, which would normally be a marker for identical twins being present, but one of them was a boy and one of them was a girl, making them clearly not identical. Added to this, each of the embryos also had both XY and XX chromosomes in different cells of their bodies, meaning that some cells were genetically male and some were female. Their gender seems to have been related to which gender was more numerous in terms of cells. If XX predominated, they became a girl, and vice versa. What essentially happens in this process is that two sperm enter the egg at the exact same time. The egg, or zygote, now has three sets of genetic material instead of the usual two. These three sets of genetic material recombine to produce three different cells, one of which has DNA from both sperm cells, and two other cells which each have 50% DNA from the egg cell and a portion from either of the two sperm. Now, this third set of cells containing DNA from both sperm dies, leaving behind the cells that will develop into embryos. The embryos that develop are semi-identical due to the fact that, overall, they share identical DNA from the egg cell, but different sperm DNA, hence resulting in the situation reported in 2019. There have since been some health complications with the Australian twins, specifically the girl. Her arm was amputated when she was 4 weeks, and her ovaries were removed when she was 3 years old because they hadn't developed properly, which could increase her risk of a particular cancer. This risk stems from her genetics. Sesquizygotic twins are, I should note, incredibly rare. To date, these two cases from 2007 and 2014 are the only ones we've discovered of their kind. I should mention that how related the twins are has varied between these two known human cases. According to a BBC article, The first ever case showed that 50% of their paternal DNA was shared, but the Australian sesquizygotic twins shared 78% of their paternal DNA. I'm not exactly sure why this would be, but if I manage to uncover anything more about it, I will follow this question up in a blog post on our website. But whatever the case is, the existence of sesquizygotic twins certainly shows that twins can be more complicated than we first give them credit for. As always, thank you for listening. If you have any suggestions for future episode topics, questions, or general comments, feel free to get in touch at biopediapodcast@gmail.com. Until next time, have a great week.